Dallas Theological Seminary's Chapel Podcast.
Our chapel speaker today is Dr. Chuck Swindoll. He served as the fourth president of Dallas Seminary from 1994 to 2001. Since then, he has served as Chancellor, and he is also the senior pastor of Stonebriar Community Church in Frisco, Texas, which is north of Dallas. Dr. Swindoll is the featured Bible teacher on the popular radio program Insight for Living, which is aired many times daily worldwide. He is also the author of many books on Bible characters and topics for Christian living, plus a new Bible study series entitled Swindoll's New Testament Insights. His warmth, insight, humor, and personal transparency have made him a well-loved pastor-teacher for more than 50 years of ministry. Chuck and his wife Cynthia reside here in the Metroplex and enjoy spending time with their 4 adult children and 10 grandchildren. Would you please join me in welcoming today Dr. Chuck Swindoll.
Thank you, and a very special word of congratulations to you, our brother, on that very well-deserved award. A lot of faculty members were on the edge of their seats, wondering if they were the one, but they weren't. Well-deserved, and thank you for your years of faithful ministry, and we pray for many more. Well, here we are, starting a new semester, getting going on a marathon that could be a marathon of misery, or a marathon of life-changing, transforming experiences. So I want to give you a list for both. I'll start with the one on how to be miserable throughout the academic year that's in front of you, and then we'll turn to that which I believe will lead you into a far more exciting year that you can spend here on this campus. I got the idea for this from an article I read literally every year. I have a number of favorite writers in the real world, and one of them is Rick Riley, who made a move from Sports Illustrated to ESPN, and I regret that because we no longer find his article at the last page of Sports Illustrated, but back when he wrote, I often would start there and read the magazine backwards because it was the best thing in there. I've always appreciated this for the balance as he speaks to an imaginary class of young college graduates who are entering the professional ranks. And it's filled with humor and of course, touches of sarcasm, honesty, and a touch of humiliation, which is needed for some of those hot shots that are getting ready to step into that world. He calls his piece, Speaking of Class, to the graduating class. Thanks, graduates. Please be seated. It's an honor to address the college athletes who are going on to the pros this year. If I may, I'd like to offer just a few pieces of advice. Every now and again, turn off the video game and shut off the television and open a book. We already have enough jocks who think the brothers Karamazov are the WWF Tag Team Champions. If you ever hear yourself saying, they offered me $81 million, what an insult. Find a tire iron and go into a quiet room, hit yourself very hard on the shin a number of times. Marry someone who has never heard of you. Now that you've made it, practice twice as long as you did in college. The hardest worker in the NBA, you'll remember, was Michael Jordan. Well, what does that tell you? And if you write a book, read it before it comes out. Be careful with your money. Write your own checks. None of this power of attorney crap. Get an agent and a lawyer and tell each of them the other is a crook. Shock the world. Apologize when you screw up. And by the way, don't buy a Vanderbilt mansion just because you can. You know how many 50-room jock palaces I've been in with 2 rooms worth of cheap furniture? Okay, so you didn't grow up with a father. Go out and be one. Make a difference in the life of one kid who is not your own. It'll give you more joy than a lifetime shoe contract. Just a reminder, you will die someday. So stop thumping your chest. The line blocked the quarterback through a perfect spiral while getting his head knocked off, and the good receiver drew double coverage. Get over yourself. Once a season, let your offensive guard spike the ball. I see the woman up there, section 595, row WW, seat 29. She makes $26,000 a year. She paid $22 a ticket for her family, and she just plunked down $17 for 3 Cokes and a warm beer. Treat her nice. Without her, you're a 320-pound bouncer with half a PE degree. And go easy on the tattoos. By the time you're 60, the hula girl on your bicep going to look like Don Knotts. I like that line. Help your opponent up. He'll probably be your teammate next year. No offense, but when you're setting off the airport metal detector from the back of the line, you might have on too much jewelry. For the next 10 years or so, you'll travel the world first class. You'll make more money than Zurich, Switzerland. So let's not hear a lot of whining, okay? So what if your Oakley deal fell through? We'll start a telethon. Oh, and one last thing. I love this. Remember when you were a kid, all you dreamed of was playing center field for the New York Yankees? Soon you'll be there. Don't forget to tingle. My fear is that some of you are going to forget to tingle here at this school. You're going to listen to upperclassmen. You're going to start getting cynical. You're going to let the world cave in on you, and you're going to start feeling sorry for yourself. You're going to remember where you used to work and what you could be living in if you were there. If you're not careful, you'll stop tingling. I loved what Paul prayed earlier. How many people would love to be in just this room? Don't ever forget that. Just to hear all of you singing together in this chapel would be, what an unforgettable experience for even some in my own congregation out there in Frisco. You forget when you're here just how great this opportunity is, how magnificent to sit under the men and women who wrote the text. I remember taking a course and sitting in front of one of our profs and realized virtually everything he was teaching was right there in his book. He had written. We had Dr. Walke right after he got back from Harvard. That was fun. We had an introductory Hebrew class where the average grade was 21. I felt good. I got up to 17 one time, as I recall. So, how can you make yourself miserable the whole year? How can you forget to tingle really quick? Here we go. Number 1, worry a lot. Worry a lot. Worry about money. Worry about your grades. Worry about your future. Worry about where you're going to be in ministry. Just add to your worry list. It'll just drag you down all through the year. Worry a lot. Watch a lot of evening news. Worry over what's being presented. Add to your worry list each day. You'll be one miserable soul. You'll stop tingling by the third week. Number 2. Cultivate isolationism. Pull back. No spiritual formation for me, thanks. I don't really need it. I'm here to study. Don't need to worry about my classmates or relating with them. You just forget when you do that. That's the way you're going to handle yourself in ministry. And they're going to throw you out the first year you're there. You better learn how to relate to people while you're here, because it doesn't automatically happen when you're there. If you're not careful, you'll get lost in your studies and you'll forget the name of your third child. And strangely, your wife will no longer want to be that romantic. And again, you'll forget to tingle. So develop an isolationist mentality. Here's a third one. Compare yourself with others. That's a winner. We men understand something of that. We look at Arnold Schwarzenegger without a shirt on, and then we stand in front of a mirror and wonder what happened. And ladies, you can compare your brains to Condoleezza Rice, and you'll lose, because you're not Condoleezza Rice. One of her is magnificent. The other one that's trying to be her is a joke. You're not Condoleezza Rice. You're who you are. You're the one God's called to do what you're going to be doing in the future. So stop comparing yourself to others, unless you want to be miserable. Number 4, lengthen your list of enemies. Really cultivate the blame game. Something goes wrong, be sure you find somebody else to blame for it. Or if you make a rotten grade, be sure it's some other thing that bears the responsibility of that. You'll be miserable. I read this past week, a pessimist is a person who is seasick during the entire voyage of life. Isn't that a good line? You cultivate pessimism. That's fun to be around. And you'll stop tingling really quick. Number 5. Set unrealistic expectations. Okay, you're going to be a straight A all the way through school. Look at these faces up here. They got other plans for you. You're going to earn that A, and they're not going to be all A's, and you're going to be grateful for what you get. I remember having a classmate in our class back in years ago, and we would go get back then we had the blue books, and we would go get our blue books from the mail room, and we'd all pull out our tests. And what'd you get in Theology 104? I got so-and-so. What'd you get over here in church history? And our classmate came down, pulled the blue book out of the mail room, turned it over and wrote grace on the back. Doesn't even look at the grade. What a great way to live your life. It's all by grace. You're here by grace. You're breathing because of grace. You're able to read because of grace. You're here to study in this place where you will make of it what it is. And nobody else is to blame for what it becomes for you as you plan on graduating and going out into ministry. If you're not careful, you're going to miss this. And I don't want you to miss it. I don't want you to lose your enthusiasm for the greatest calling on the planet and the joy of declaring Christ everywhere you go. Why am I yelling? I'm so excited about this. All right. 1 Peter chapter 2. Some of you are going, when is he going to get in the Word? Would you relax? I'll get there. 1 Peter chapter 2. It's easy to forget when you turn to 1 Peter that the letter was written right about the time Nero went nuts, about 64, 65. He's paranoid, he's brutal, he's prejudiced, and of all things, this guy in his late 20s is running the world, blaming Christians for setting Rome on fire. That's when the letter is written. Why are we surprised that Peter would write to strangers and aliens? Chapter 2, verse 11. And what a great word of encouragement. I urge you. It's a strong word for urge. I strongly urge you. The old archaic word is beseech. I beg of you. I beseech you. As aliens and strangers, and there's no doubt about it, this isn't our home. This is our journey toward home. And so that's his point here. You're strangers and you're aliens. So he says to us, abstain from fleshly lusts which wage war against the soul. Those are strong words. Stratuo. It's the whole idea of a strategy of warfare against your soul. And it's all around us. The world system drips with it. So he urges us to do what? Verse 12, keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles. So write this in the margin if you haven't got any other place to put it. You are being watched by an unbelieving world. You are being watched by an unbelieving world. This is the first in a list of 5 things I want you to remember from now till you've finished with your ministry, which is the end of your life. You are being watched by an unbelieving world, so keep your behavior excellent among the Gentiles. Why? He tells us, so that in the thing in which they slander you as evildoers, they may, because of your good deeds, as they observe them, glorify God in the day of visitation. I've seen that happen over and over again among friends of mine who have lived the life in a neighborhood that's filled with unbelieving people. Every neighborhood you move into will be. Virtually every one of our neighbors is lost. Guess who they watch on the block? Guess who they pay attention to as to whether he does his lawn or takes care of his house and his cars? They watch us. You are and I are being watched by an unbelieving world. And we're to live in such a way that we silence their slander. I'm at times just amazed at folks who observe I'm walking through a grocery store or something, or I'm checking out. And the other night I was picking up some luggage over at Love Field for our son-in-law and daughter. She had gotten sick on the way back, so they left the luggage and we went to pick it up for them. And I walked up and I said, we want to get some luggage for I gave him the name, and she goes, okay, where have I heard that voice? And I go, I don't know, maybe in prison? When our prison mate, she laughed. She said, no, I know. And the cop next to her said, you know who that is? And I thought, oh boy. I'm so glad I hadn't said anything nasty up till then. As one of our kids used to say, Lord, help me not to say anything nasty today. I was so glad that I hadn't lost my temper, at least while they were watching. And he spent the time talking with Cynthia as I went to get the car, and he has never once been to our church. And he said, you know, part of the reason is that Christians can really Really be hypocritical. Well, we got a terrible reputation out there. You know who are among the worst? Preachers. In our radio ministry, we periodically have offers that we make available to people, and invariably those who want more than would normally come to them are the pastors who call us, and they expect a handout or some special treatment. You don't get special treatment. You give people special treatment as a child of God, as a minister of the gospel. That's why I like this thing by Rick Riley. Who do these guys think they are? Because they can put a ball in the hoop or they can pass 150 yards, or suddenly they're Mr. Everything, but they ain't got any character. And that's what folks are looking for. That's what will silence the slander as they observe our good deeds. So what am I saying? Whatever your secular job is, and you probably have one to work your way through school, and quit whining about it. We all did. So you're there as a doorman down at Schlock Hotel, or you're over here night duty on something as a guard. You as a guard. Anyway, you're doing all that. They're watching you. Your boss is paying attention to you. I got a friend in the clothing business who said that I've hired my last Christian. It's a true story. I hired my last Christian. I said, Earl, why would you say that? He said, because they are the absolute worst when it comes to employment. Furthermore, they steal from me. I think he's mistaken when he says that. He says, no, and I'm telling you, what's missing? Their behavior isn't excellent among the Gentiles. Make sure yours is. Make sure when you're away from this campus and you're rubbing shoulders with folks who don't know all the stuff you're learning, make sure that they see the one you love being lived out through you. Make sure your kids get the right message. Make sure you're a good daddy and a good husband, a good mother, and wife, and friend. It'll cause others who right now curse him to glorify God. So throughout this semester, remember you're being watched by an unbelieving world. Well, it gets better when you drop down to verse 18. Watch closely. Servants, be submissive to your masters with all respect. Not only to those who are good and gentle, but to those who are unreasonable. Look at that word. Number 2, expect to encounter unreasonable people. Expect to encounter unreasonable people. They're depraved. They're lost, for goodness sake. And some who are unreasonable are in the family of God. And they're ornery. And you're going to encounter that. It's interesting, the word unreasonable. We get our word scoliosis from it. Scolios means to be bent or crooked. It's the idea of being morally bent, twisted, unscrupulous, dishonest. In fact, you may remember over in Philippians chapter 2, do all things without grumbling or disputing. Verse 15 of chapter 2 of Philippians, so that you will prove yourselves to be blameless and innocent children of God, above reproach in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation. My mentor, Ray Stedman, used to say this world's full of crooks and perverts. They're the people we spend our time with. Expect it. They will be unreasonable. Don't let that surprise you. Don't let it throw you. This is the world we live in. I'm just going to put it straight. Sometime you'll find one of these profs unreasonable. Or you'll feel they're unreasonable. You will feel like they didn't really, give you a fair shake. Be careful about that attitude. Because the habits you form here, you're going to carry with you there. wherever there may be. And we can fake it too, can't we? We can act like we're really doing okay when we're not. I love the story of the Army battalion that was in Korea during the Korean War, and they had a Korean young man who worked for them. He did everything for them. He cooked for them. He shined their shoes. He ironed their clothing. He was just Johnny on the spot. And they were just ornery as they could be. They mistreated him. They played jokes on him. They put buckets of water up above. He opened the door and water come down. They put, Vaseline on the stove handles and they smear them. And finally, one Christmas, they started feeling really, really guilty. And they said, Kim, we want you to know that we haven't treated you really well. And this new year is going to be different. Really? No more water on door? No more water on door. No more sticky on stove? No more sticky on stove. No more nailed shoes to the floor? No more nailed shoes to the floor. Okay. No more spit in soup. All this time, this little Korean guy's been spitting in the soup as he cooks for him. He said, well, if you're going to change, I'll change. We can act like we're really doing well and spit in the soup. And nobody knows. So he says, be submissive to your masters. Those that are good and gentle, that's easy. But those who are unreasonable, that's tough. So expect to encounter unreasonable people. Here's a third one. It's in the next verse. Be willing to endure unjust treatment. For this finds favor if for the sake of conscience toward God, a person bears up under sorrows. When what? When suffering unjustly. Then look at Peter's logic here. Makes all the sense in the world. For, that's a word that explains the previous verse, little connective. For, or here's my reason. What credit is there if when you sin and are harshly treated, you endure that with patience? If you're getting what you deserve and you patiently endure it, big deal. You steal, you pay the price, you go to jail, not a lot of compassion. You stole and you deserve that time in the slammer and let's go on with our lives. But look at what's left. But, if when you do what is right and suffer for that, patiently enduring it, this finds favor with God. Isn't it wonderful how the scriptures speak? I mean, this is so realistic. Be willing to endure unjust treatment. I know that your motive is pure. I want to believe that every year of your ministry, you will simply grow in your integrity. And there will be those who will not treat you well. You will be treated unjustly. Things will be said about you that are not true. And it'll hurt you because you know it isn't right. It isn't fair. But he says, if you endure that with patience, this finds favor with God. And the perfect example, of course, for the next couple or three verses is the Lord Jesus. For you have been called for this purpose. You've been called for the purpose of dealing with unjust treatment. Anybody can deal with just treatment. But people who are able to confront and live with unjust treatment follow the example of Christ. We're following in his steps, says the end of verse 21. You will endure unjust treatment. It'll happen in the workplace. It may even happen here on this campus. Be willing to endure it or you'll stop tingling. Here's a fourth. Cultivate unusual patience. That's in verses 20 to 24. He uses the word several times. Verse 20, you endure with patience. Verse 20, you patiently endure whatever. And then Christ, verse 22, who committed no sin, nor was any deceit found in his mouth. Imagine that. While being reviled, he did not revile in return. While suffering, he uttered no threats, but kept entrusting himself to him who judges righteously. What amazing, unusual patience. Who, when he was reviled, did not revile in return. Hanging on that cross. Father, forgive them. They don't even know what they're doing. The word that is used here for patience means to maintain a course of action in the face of opposition, standing one's ground, holding up under a heavy load. Hupomeno, it's the idea of being under a load, and that load gets stacked on you and the pressure increases. You'll find that happening at the school. You don't have much pressure right now. School just started. It won't be long before the load will stack up on you. And it'll get heavier and heavier. Remember the words of Hudson Taylor, it does not matter how great the pressure is. What really matters is where the pressure lies, whether it comes between you and God or whether it presses you nearer his heart. It doesn't matter where the pressure, how great it is. The matter is where you allow it to lie in your life. Patiently enduring, cultivate unusual patience. Oh, you'll be so grateful for that in ministry. You'll need it with the elders you work with. You'll need it with the people whom you serve, and most of whom will be magnificent, but some can take all the joy out of it. You'll need patience to look past their comments and what they say about your wife or your husband. You'll need patience. Cultivate it right here. If you don't, you'll stop tingling. And this will become a marathon of misery. And you won't be able to wait till you can get out, as if getting out will make it better. There's one more. One more. Count on unfailing compassion and protection. Verse 25, you were continually straying like sheep, but now. Isn't that great? You were in your lost estate straying like sheep, but now you have returned to whom? Look at the words. Pay attention to words when you exposit the scriptures. Don't just pass over words for the general setting of a passage, including the narratives, the shepherd, and the guardian. When you think of shepherd, what comes into your mind? Turn that over in your study. In extra biblical world, it conveyed the idea of one who brings comfort, one who cares for. Even in Isaiah, we read of, he shall feed his flock like a shepherd and tenderly hold us in his arms as little lambs. You can count on that. You'll need that. And the next word is guardian, Episkopos. That word is the idea of guarding over, protecting, maintaining law and order, it meant in the Athenian world. He will maintain life for you. Both are unfailing. See how it reads? You were continually straying, but now you have returned to the shepherd and the guardian of your souls. Oh, You have in front of you the most magnificent life you can imagine. You will be, for some people, the model of what they long to attain, and you won't even know it. Most of them will never tell you that. In unguarded moments, they may say a word or two about it, but you'll be living your life. You'll be touching them through your counseling, through your presence, through your character, through your neighborliness, through your kindness, your patience. And you know what happens in their life when they witness that? They start to tingle. They realize that they don't have this. And then you'll have the opportunity as the door opens widely to tell them about the one from whom you once strayed, but no longer. Okay, we got them? You're being watched by an unbelieving world, verses 11 and 12. Expect to encounter unreasonable people, verse 18. Be willing to endure unjust treatment, verse 19. Cultivate unusual patience, verses 20 to 24. Count on God's unfailing compassion and protection. Can I tell you something? I cannot wait to preach. It happens every Saturday night. It happens every Monday night when I'm going to be here on a Tuesday. And then suddenly I realize what an awesome responsibility it is. And it's not so much that it's exciting and fun. It's that I have the opportunity to take you into a book that is ageless and timeless, protected and true, and you can see it for yourself and take it with you. May God be glorified now, during these years of training, and for the rest of your life. Lord God, be glorified in our lives. Be glorified in our school. Be glorified in our homes. Be glorified in our ministry. And may we find ourselves so caught up in it and lost in the wonder and praise of it that we even forget we're standing there. As we step aside and you take over. May that start during these tingling days of seminary training. In the name of Jesus. Everybody said.